Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Witches and Wine. This is the show where we talk about witchy stuff and we drink wine. Clink and drink.
Clink.
Clink and drink. Mmm. Yummy wine.
That's good.
So,
I'm going to hang on to that.
Yeah, I know. When you say that's good, we got to know. We'll ask about your wine. So, before we get started, I'm your hostess with the mostest, Lola Stardust. And I do need to put the disclaimer that we like to put at the beginning of every show. This show is called Witches and Wine, meaning we partake in wine. And sometimes that makes us talk and be a little silly. And some people don't appreciate that. I don't know why. But if you're one of those people that gets offended by tipsiness and witchiness, then there's this wonderful thing that we have in the corner of the screen. It's an X. And all you got to do is just hit the X. And you don't have to watch us. All right. So before we start, I'm going to turn this over to my partner in crime, my husband, my high priest, Silent Stardust. Why don't you tell us about the wine this evening?
I would be happy to, honey. Tonight, I chose a favorite of ours, our favorite grape. It's a Cab Franc. This is out the Napa region, St. Helena, made by Titus Vineyards. A really, really high quality, elegant wine. You're not going to find these in the beginning wine section. This is a wine that we had to breathe for an hour to even get it anywhere near ready to drink.
Yeah, but it's worth it.
Made by Philip Titus, who is a highly sought after consulting winemaker. He reaches out and does work with Camus and a few other high-end wineries, 100 Acres and a few others, if I remember right. Gonna run you close to $50 a bottle, so not inexpensive at all. But it's one of these ones that are really nice to pull out for a nice, elegant, well-crafted steak meal. Mm-hmm. It has a nice little earthiness to it.
It does.
Yeah,
you're so good. He's so good at
the Cab Franc.
Yes.
You're gonna have a little bit of cherry notes, and then you're gonna get a little bit of cassis, which is blackcurrant for those who don't know the European term. Cassis. So I'm gonna go ahead and send it back to you now, so we can bring our guest in and just keep on enjoying this wine.
Yes, it is earthy. I like that is the word that comes to my mind, but I couldn't quite think of it.
That's what Cab Francs are known for, is being
earthy.
An earthier grape.
Yes, I like it. So I'm so excited about our guest this evening. A friend of mine reached out to me and said, you've got to have her on your show. She reached out to her and said, you got to be on their show. So this was like a little matchmaking, which is awesome. We've got Bree NicGarren on our show. She's an author. She does a podcast. She sells witchy stuff. She's just amazing. I have been reading about her and looking into her stuff, and I'm really excited to talk to you. Welcome to the show, Bree.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited. So one of the things I wanted to talk about first off is your books. You've got 3 books out?
3 going on 4.
Oh, nice. Okay, so you must be working on one right now?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Can you tell us about your 3 books that are out?
I certainly can. The big one that most people know me for is Grove Daughter Witchery Practical Spellcraft. It's the one with the lovely green cover. Mm-hmm. And I basically wrote that to be the book that I wish that I had had when I was starting out as a witch. Mm-hmm. So it has a lot of basic tutorials and techniques that can help you kind of get your feet wet in the craft, even if you haven't quite figured out your spiritual path yet, because not everyone does right away.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a really highly personal journey for people to take. And some folks, maybe they don't want to get into that right away, but they want to learn how to do magic.
Yeah.
So I put a bunch of tutorials together and some simple spells, stuff that I've used.
Nice.
And all that practical advice that I wish someone had given to tiny baby beginner witch me 15 years ago when I was dumb.
When you maybe tried to hex the moon. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I can't help it.
Yeah, I was I heard of that and I rolled my eyes so hard, I think I saw my own brain.
But it's true though. So that's exactly would be the type of witches that this book would probably be good for as well. But also for maybe more practiced witches, just a nice refresher course too, because we're constantly learning and evolving.
Oh yeah, and I made sure that when I wrote it, I made sure to talk about things like community inclusivity and using witch as a gender neutral term, being aware of things like fire safety, cultural appropriation, working safely with herbs. You know, just little practical stuff that I feel like some of the like modern witchcraft lit sometimes skips over because either it's just not a priority in the writing or it's an it is known thing.
It's the assumptive.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I was like, I'm going to assume they know nothing at all, and I'll just be nice and let them know.
Well, it's also good because there is a generation of witches that I'm learning from because I'm 48, so I'm kind of set in my ways, I'm that generation that if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. That's how I was raised. So it's always good for me to be reading books about these newer practices that I'm not familiar with. I'm not, or I never even would have thought of the genderless witch type of labels and stuff like that. I just come from a practice of, witch or, whatever, warlock or whatever you want to call them, whatever. Of course, witch is a witch is a witch to me. I mean, I kind of just think all men and women and everyone in between, we're just witches. But it's good to remind, I guess I don't like to say I'm an old lady, but I'm in between. And so it's good to remind us of that. I think that's important. So I enjoy reading that too.
Mm-hmm.
And you have other books out too. Can you tell us what those other ones are?
Yes. Actually, one of my other ones was technically the first book I published, but due to some rewrites and my co-author from that volume deciding that she was done with the publishing game, but I wanted to go on with it. I'm saying this in rather a roundabout way.
Okay.
The book I'm talking about is The Sisters' Grimoire.
I was looking into that one. That one looks really exciting. Yeah.
I'm really proud of that one. That was technically my first book, but I had to republish a second edition under my own name just after I published Grove Daughter Witchery, actually just a few months after. And that is a proper spell book. It is just a spell book. Mm-hmm. And all of the spells in it are based on the fairy tales of the Brothers Grimm.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to talk to you about this one. Absolutely. Yes. That's exciting.
You'll also be pleased to know that a second volume of that type of spell is what I'm working on right now.
Oh, wonderful. Oh my gosh. I love the Grimm fairy tales. I grew up on those. I collect those books. So that's really exciting. Yeah. So I take it, can you kind of give us an example of how it's based on the Grimm fairy tales?
Sure. Oh, let me think.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah. I actually haven't read it in months. So I'm trying to think of one, and they've all just gone.
Well, didn't you do one on your podcast, The Water?
Yes, The Water of Life was one I just did. That'll work.
Yes.
In that particular fairy tale, darned if I can remember the title, but it's there. The king had fallen ill, and his children had to go out and find this magical elixir that would make him well again, called the Water of Life. And there's a whole quest involved, and it's a magic potion, and so on and so forth. And I just thought, oh, well, what a fantastic idea for a spell. And that's generally how I put them together, is I would skim through the book. I read my volume of Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales cover to cover probably a dozen times, just to find things. So many bookmarks.
Oh, I bet.
Oh my gosh. And I would just find passages or paragraphs and either either look for something that sparked an idea, or I would have an idea and then I would look for a passage that fit with it.
Yeah. And the thing I like about Grimm fairy tales is that it's so pagan. You know what I mean? And it's so I just see so much pagan what's the word? Examples and
What's allegorical?
Allegorical. He's the vocab. Yeah. What a great word, allegorical. So I that really piqued my interest when I was listening to your podcast, and I was like, oh my God, this is Grimm stuff. This is awesome. And so is that your whole podcast? I haven't listened to the others yet, but is it usually based on your books, or do you just talk about whatever?
It's a bit of both, really.
Okay.
I am drawing material from my books just because I've written so many articles that, would make good episodes that they're being incorporated. Actually, for episode 4, episode 4, I did a whole big long episode of advice for beginner witches. And I basically took that section from Grove Daughter Witchery and read through it and then expanded on it at intervals.
And your podcast is Hex
Positive.
Hex Positive.
Thank you. Okay. Hex Positive for our viewers. And we're going to put in links too at the end so everyone will know.
And so since we're bringing up, want to explain what Hex Positive is in your podcast? What it's tailored for?
Yeah.
Well, Hex Positive, as some people might guess, is sort of a switch of phrase of sex positive. And there are a lot of definitions of the term sex positive, but the most commonly agreed upon one is that people should be allowed to explore their sexuality in healthy, consensual ways and not be shamed for it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And with emphasis on healthy and consenting.
Absolutely. Those are the big ones. And
respect and consent.
Respect and consent. Clink and drink to respect and consent.
Clink. For real. So to me, being hex positive, and I should tell you first that I am.
Yeah.
Hex positive to me means that magical practitioners should be able to explore both beneficial and baneful magics and everything in between without being ridiculed for their interest in it or their use of it.
I love that. That is there's the light and the dark, and I think people forget as witches we're an occult. We're part of the occult, and the occult means in the dark, hidden. And so I think people get scared and they automatically assume that if you're playing with that quote unquote darker magic, that you're gonna do it for bad things, but you got to take responsibility.
You reap what you sow, and then I'm guessing that you talk a lot about threefold law with this.
I did address it in one of the episodes where I talk about my stance on baneful magic and what it means to be hex positive. The way that I look at the threefold law is like the old version, because the version that most people hear is that everything you do is going to come back on you 3 times, and it only ever seems to be mentioned in connection with using baneful magic. It's never about anything good that you've done. It's only, if you curse someone, it's going to destroy your life. And I'm like, now where did this come from?
Yeah.
So with the help of a friend, Trey Dorn from the BS Free Witchcraft podcast, which is the sibling show to Hex Positive.
Oh, cool.
Also on the Nerd and Tie podcast network. Check it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We explored some of the roots of the concept, and they introduced me to where it had come from, which is back in the old Gardnerian days. And the context that was given for the concept was not you get what you give, but that you should be giving what you get.
Yeah.
And I like that definition a lot more. It's okay, that's fine. If someone does you a good turn, then you pay it back to them 3 times over, or you pay it forward. You take that goodness and you find a way to put it back out in the world and kind of brighten the corner where you are.
Yeah.
But if somebody messes with you, bury them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And one of my old teachers taught me that we have a right as human beings, not just as witches, but as human beings, to protect ourselves and protect our kin. So there is a time and place for that kind of magic. And again, but I think it's important to talk about that, because there will be people that will take it to an extent that could just blow up and be very, very negative, affecting not just on themselves, but anyone that comes within their
just be aware.
circle.
Be aware of the magic you produce and create.
Well, we have to be aware of even the positive magic we do.
I'm saying all magic.
Just all magic. Yeah.
Just be aware.
All magic has a price, and everything has consequences.
Absolutely.
And whatever you do, for good or for ill, you need to be prepared to accept them.
And so that is kind of what I'm assuming is what you talk about hex positive, is that be educated in that, but know that it doesn't make you a quote unquote evil person if you're using hexing or using that kind of magic in a way that, again, you have to protect yourself, protect your surroundings, and just be knowledgeable. Make sure you research, make sure you know what you're getting yourself into.
Exactly. Yeah. I actually think that every witch should learn something about hexing and cursing or baneful magic in general, even if they never, ever, ever plan to use it, because if you don't know how it works, you can't protect yourself from it.
Yeah.
They should use no theory.
Yeah.
It's the whole defense against the dark arts concept.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Clink and drink to defense against the dark arts. What kind of wine are you drinking, Bree?
It's kind of half and half. It's half early apple cider and half this wonderful stuff. It is Pennsylvania Dutch spiced apple wine.
Yummy.
From the Mount Hope Estate and Winery back in my old home state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And that's up in Lancaster County.
Okay.
Oh, neat. That sounds tasty.
Is that
It is.
Is that near Amish country?
It is. It is smack in the heart of Amish country.
I remember Lancaster County being Amish country.
Yep. Yeah, the whole Mount Hope, Lebanon, Lancaster area, that's all Amish country. Okay. And the Mount Hope Winery hosts the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair on their grounds every year.
Oh, cool.
Not this year, but
yeah. Everything's kind of on hold in the world right now.
Yeah.
How are you dealing with quarantine? How are you keeping sane? How are you keeping busy? I'm writing, obviously, but what else are you doing to keep yourself not going crazy like some of us are?
Well, I'm teetering on the edge of the crazy sometimes. The wine helps.
Always are.
Yeah.
The wine helps.
Mental health in a bottle.
Absolutely.
I like that.
Mental health in a
yes.
bottle. Now, anyone out there, please don't know that we're not saying,
this is not going to fix any mental health issues you have. This is tongue-in-cheek.
There is tongue-in-cheek, witches and wine, clink and drink. Mental health is a real thing, and take care of yourself, but enjoy a nice glass of wine. Moderation, my friends.
Yes, it's like my husband says, don't drink to feel better, drink to feel even better.
That, my friend, is a very good motto.
I like that.
So you're so what are you doing? You're working on a new book?
Yes. Most of my time now is taken up with writing and planning the podcast, but I am making sure that I take time every week to work on the Sisters Grimoire Volume 2.
Yeah.
And this time around, I'm exploring the collected works of Andrew Lang, all those color-coded fairy books. Do you remember those?
Oh, yes. Oh, cool.
Oh, yes. I'm going through all of them, and there's about 15. And I think I've managed to get at least a couple of spells from every single one.
Awesome.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
And
So
the second book is going to be bigger than the first one.
Oh, that's awesome. So you like, are you a fae, do you do any fae magic or fae spellcraft or anything like, you're not a fae follower? Is there a reason why? Because I know that a lot of people kind of stay away from that because it can be a little, it's not fluffy bunny stuff with the fae.
That's very true. That is a part of it. Part of it is also that it's very complicated and intricate, and I'm not great at remembering my manners on my best day.
Yeah, right?
So, but see, if I'm accidentally rude to a person, I can apologize.
Yes.
If I'm accidentally rude to the fae, me and 7 generations of my kids are screwed.
Yeah.
So we have house brownies, I'm pretty sure, but that's enough.
Yeah, we have well, I grew up with fairies around me in my parents' backyard. That when I was a child, that was my first introduction to the fae folk, and I met the queen of the fairies. I even wrote a story about it. I would love to send that to you and we can talk because it's one of my favorite stories. It's a short story, but I got to dig it out. And then we have fairies in our backyard. We have a fairy tree, and we just always do offerings to them to keep them happy.
At the end of every ritual, we give
we wine and our cakes and ale. We leave extra and always put it under the tree, and they seem to be very they're very happy. And that's about as much fae work as we do.
we thank them for their presence and their continued protections.
Yep, and we're good with that.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So I want to talk about what I'm really excited about is you do a blog for new witches. Can you tell us where to find that blog, what it's called, and just tell us all about that? How did that start?
It kind of started by accident. But then again, so did Grove Daughter Witchery. Oh, we forgot one of the books.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Shoot.
You have so much. What's the third book?
Well, we'll get to the blog right after this. But
Absolutely.
The third book is Pestle Work.
Oh, nice.
It's a teeny tiny little slim volume. It's purple. It's adorable, and it's all recipes.
So is it herbalism and apothecaryism?
Yes.
Oh,
awesome. That's my stuff.
That's his kind of.
You're gonna love this. It's a very potion-y kind of book. It's all recipes for magical powders and oils, all stuff from my own personal files. All of the recipes are original.
Awesome.
You won't find them anywhere else.
Yeah.
I've checked.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are really affected. I tested as many of the recipes as I could. Empirically testing magic is difficult.
Yeah.
But to a point, you can kind of test some of it. My recipe for banishing powder is in there, and I swear by that stuff.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's really easy to make too. It's just cinnamon, cayenne pepper, salt, black pepper, and eggshell powder.
Oh, see, and I was looking at your store, your online store, and I saw the banishing powder, and so that's really good for protection and ridding of because I use the black salt, my incense, and then my salt, and I'll put we in the back of our house we have some undesirables that hang out in the alley, and it's open. Our backyard is open to it, so I do a little barrier of black salt. Would your banishing be a good thing to?
Yeah, it's great for warding, banishing, and GTFO magic of all sorts. It's kind of all purpose.
Mine works really well, but I'm all about whatever, getting all the tools and because it is again, we have the right to protect ourselves and protect our property and So awesome. I would definitely check that one out.
It has a bit of a bite to it.
What?
It has a bit of a bite to it.
And what do you mean by that?
Peppery.
Yeah, it is. Whatever you do, no matter how good it smells, don't put your nose in the jar and
don't inhale. Yep.
Don't inhale. I've made that mistake so many times.
Oh God!
Yeah, black pepper, cayenne, and cinnamon is not a good thing to inhale.
That would clear your sinuses, maybe.
Oh, howdy. It's just, this smells so lovely. Oh no. Yeah.
Achoo, over and over.
Well, for a good minute, my eyes were watering, but it's like, this smells great.
So it sounds like a lot of your witchcraft and spell work, I'm assuming, because we read that you do, what was it, cottage?
Yeah,
cottage witchery or witchcraft.
What is that?
What is that?
That's, cottage craft is basically sort of a combination of like garden, hearth, and kitchen witchcraft. It's anything that has to do with the home, the garden, the family unit. It's kind of all inclusive. It's like homestead magic.
Yeah, I like that. And I'm a stay-at-home mom, so I'm always looking for things to spiritually charge our house and keep it safe, but also, bring in the positivity and the creativity. And so that word kind of appealed to me, cottage witchcraft, or cottage witchery, whatever you want to call it. I like that because I'm at home. Well, we're all at home now. So I think that would be good for the witches that now are like at home to do that. Is that in all of your book? Is that in your the last book, the Pestle book you were talking about?
Pestle.
Yeah.
The idea of cottage craft kind of informs all of the stuff that I put in. It's very home focused. It's very plant focused, and it's very focused on working with what you have and what you can find, not just at occult stores or in your backyard, but at the supermarket or the thrift shop. It's very much working within a budget and kind of turning what you have to do what you need.
I love that. And that is something that our mutual friend who hooked us up to, she's really into that. She has really taught me a lot about working with herbs and working with the stuff that you already have in your spice rack. And just look at that, and then what are the magical properties? What can you use it for? And that to me is so much more, because I don't have a green thumb. So I'm very intimidated by plant magic and herb magic because it's just not my thing. I think it's great, but I'm always afraid, like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. But if it's already in the kitchen, to me that relieves a lot of stress and a lot of insecurities that I had. So I love that. I love that you guys are doing this and teaching it, because for me, it's much more approachable for me to use. So I thank you for putting that out there and teaching that. What, you were going to say something, honey?
Well, I was going to ask, would we be able to reach out to you and have you maybe reach out and do a workshop with us online?
I would love to.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, I think we could use you because we have some other people that are into herbalism and apothecaryism in our group. And I think they would really enjoy talking with you and hearing from you.
Cool. Yeah, we got each other's email, so we'll because I'm already thinking of things that you can participate in. I run several women. I run a women's group that would love to have you, but we'll talk later. I'm excited. So the blog.
Yes, the blog.
What is it called?
It's not really called anything. It's breelandwalker.tumblr.com if anyone wants to visit me. And it was just a personal blog when I started it. It was just, this is, me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started posting witchy stuff on it. And, then I got into the community that was there and started participating in the discourse. Oh boy, those were the days.
Yeah.
And it actually became a learning space for me because there were so many other witches on there who were way more experienced and had a much broader view of the community. Because I've been solitary pretty much my entire time. I'm largely self-educated in my craft. So I didn't really have that outside perspective because I didn't have someone else teaching me. I just had, books.
Yeah.
So being able to interact with other witches more or less in real time and have these important discussions about, this is how the community functions. This is what you've got to look out for. Hey, that thing you learned from that book, we don't actually do that anymore. It's called this now.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh. And just having that outside perspective and actually talking to witches who had different ways of doing things was a real eye-opener. And I give that experience a lot of credit for, making me the witch that I am today.
Yeah.
And then when I got to the point where I felt like I was kind of seasoned and was like, well, I've got a little knowledge now. Let me start posting some of the things that I've written. The response to it just suddenly I was gaining lots and lots of followers seemingly overnight. And I published articles and recipes and spells and all this, that, and the other thing. I started answering questions where I could. And then in 2016, right after I got married, I had just I had just lost my job.
Oh no.
It wasn't a great situation. But I was like, well, unemployment is taking care of us for right now, but while I'm looking for a job, why don't I participate in National Novel Writing Month? And I've been wanting to write a novel for years. Let's do this.
Yeah.
The novel didn't get written.
You're not the first person to tell me that.
Yeah. And halfway through the month, I was fed up and frustrated and stuck, like you do.
Yeah.
So I went in my files, like, all right, let me work on something else and see if something clicks, And then I looked at the collection of articles I'd written and the questions I'd answered, and just all of these things that I had saved from my blog over the years, and all these things that I had written, for pieces for other discussions, and kind of went, there's an awful lot here. I wonder how much this would be if I put it in a Word document.
Yeah.
90 pages.
Oh, jeez.
Okay.
Well, there's your book.
Guess I'm writing a book.
Yeah.
So I fleshed it out and I took some pictures and I wrote more articles and recipes and spells. And in January the following year, like almost exactly 2 months later, I published Grove Daughter Witchery.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I like to call it my accidental book.
I love that though. It was supposed to. But it's accidental, but not. It was supposed to happen.
You do self-publishing, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so can you explain to some of our guests or our audience who would be interested in that, how you go about certain things?
Yeah, because I like to write a lot, and I've thought about self-publishing, but I've never really looked into it. So can you explain that for us?
Okay. Well, cards on the table. I did publish through Amazon. I know they're evil.
Oh, that's fine.
But it's what you got to do.
Exactly.
It's a means to an end.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And now I can buy printed copies that people can buy directly to me if they don't want to give Amazon their money.
There you go.
So I'm published through Kindle Direct Publishing, which is their self-publishing arm. It used to be Create Space, but it changed over. And basically what you do is you get your finished document, you do all the formatting, you do all the sizing, and then you go in and you submit it first as an ebook.
Okay.
And then there is an option for you to select, do you want to do this as a print book?
Oh.
And you're like, okay, I want it to be, size 6x9, extra formatting. No, here's the cover art. And they'll send you a printed proof. And you can go through it and, make sure that everything is good and proper. And then you approve it, and then it goes live.
Wow.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. Now, does this cost?
What?
Nope.
Wow.
Does not cost anything, huh?
It does not cost anything to publish. They take a percentage of every book that sells in print or ebook.
Which is what a publisher does, so that's only fair.
Exactly. And then you get monthly royalties. I think it's on a 60-day delay.
Oh, okay. Well, it's
that's a lot easier than I thought that would. I was but now, back in the day when I was trying to be a writer,
Penguin Books kept saying no.
We didn't have all the computer access and stuff like that. I thought, at least you didn't say back in the day, I had to chisel it out on tablets.
No, well, they just weren't listening.
And then I gave it to Moses, and then he turned it into something else and said it was the 10 Commandments. So I didn't get any. I got no credit for that.
Honey, I was at least giving you papyrus.
Not even a footnote. I was picturing more quill pens, but okay.
Yeah, well, thank you. But so that's why because I know when I would try to self-publish back in the 90s or the 80s, it was really difficult to do that. But I guess now, it's just technology, click, so I might look into that because I have so many stories that I just have not published. And that's why I love authors. I love writers, because I understand the way you all think.
Mm-hmm.
We think, and I don't know about you, but do you think, is everything something that you kind of note? Like, do you narrate your life sometimes, or narrate things that are going on around you? I know I do. I narrate in my head. I'm like, and then she walked across the street and saw his eyes, and they, changed her life forever. And that's just me going out to get the mail. You know what I mean? Like, it's.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah. All of my stuff, it plays in my head either as a novel or a movie script.
Yes.
Depending on what it is. But I can never remember stuff. Thank you, ADHD. Yeah. I have to write everything down. I got to download my brain because it won't stay.
Yeah, that's a big problem too. I don't know if mine is ADHD, or we live in Washington State where weed is legal. So a lot of that might be, I smoked it away. I don't know.
It just got filed in the cabinet we can't find right now.
We just can't find that cabinet right now. So you say you talk to a lot of, or you answer questions for a lot of new witches. What are some of the most common things that they ask you or that they are interested in?
Easily the most common question that I get is, do you have any advice? And I'm like, how much time do you have?
Right.
I also get asked a lot, where do we start?
Mm-hmm.
They're like, well, I have the interest, and, I have the desire to, to try this, to move forward with it, to go somewhere with it, but I don't know where to start. Where do we start? And I always say with research.
Mm-hmm.
Because a big part of witchcraft, and it does count as practicing witchcraft to further your knowledge, is this collection of knowledge and this gaining of wisdom.
Yep.
So, and I always make sure that I tell people, I recommend mundane education along with magical. So don't just read books about, herb magic. Pick up a practical text on botany and herbology. Know which plants are safe to work with, so you're not putting belladonna in your tea.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep the balance.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, it's like that. There's a meme that I absolutely adore, and it says, the one where it says, when I tell people I'm a witch, and then it says, how they view you, what they view you doing.
Yes.
And how you view yourself is like this powerful, and your parents view you worshiping the devil, and your friends, you know, whatever. But what you're really doing is it's reading and writing and piles of books and scrolls and whatever. And it's so, it's so true. I never. And I like that you said that's still practicing witchcraft. Your research is part of your magic.
Well, in classic fantasy, mages and so forth, they're constantly having to read to maintain what they know and learn more.
Yes.
Because if they don't keep up with it, then they forget it.
Yeah.
And that's how it works as witches, is we're constantly reading, and you're reading, you should be reading different people's writings.
Yes.
From outside of your normal. If you're Alexandrian, go to Gardnerian.
Yeah.
If you're Gardnerian, go check out a Strigari book, just to see the different aspects, to see what is commonplace amongst everyone, what's a commonality, and then what is unique, and find new ways to incorporate to further yourself as a witch.
Knowledge is power, and it's so true. And I love that. I really enjoy that you said that, because you are doing your witchcraft, you are doing your magic by researching. I think people get very stuck, and they feel that to be a witch, you just have to know it already. And that's not
impossible.
That you can't know everything. But to be a witch is to have that open mind and be taking in all the information, and you filter out what doesn't work best for you.
Yep.
It doesn't mean it doesn't work best for someone else.
If it's because it doesn't speak to you, doesn't mean it's not going to speak to another.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's important also, like you mentioned, with reading about the other traditions and paths. Yes, absolutely, 1,000,000%, because it's important to have those other perspectives. You need that broad perspective. And I also recommend, along with reading about other paths and traditions, to help you find what fits with you, so you can have a place to jump off from. Reading about world history, religion, folklore, mythology, just to find something that speaks to you. Yes. And that's a great way to figure out, oh, hey, I think I want to do this Hellenic stuff. This sounds pretty awesome.
Yes.
Or, gee, this fairy witchcraft is really speaking to me.
Yep. There's so many.
Yeah.
There's so many. And also, include your world history, include your medicinal research, include your different mythologies. I mean, not all my books are witchy books, but I just read, and it opens your brain and your passion to want to know so many things, and you just go down these rabbit holes and these other ones, and it's okay. You don't have to have a library full of just witchcraft books.
Yep.
If you've got, I've got
it's good not to, honestly, because you lose perspective. If you're constantly being the witch, you forget to be the human.
Exactly. And you need that context too.
Absolutely.
It's great to learn all this witchy stuff, but if you don't know the context of where it comes from, the mythology that surrounds it, the religious aspects of it, the culture that it came from, the area of the world that it came from, all that is relevant.
Absolutely, because that's going to influence how those traditions were practiced. So you need to know about, let's say, Stragaria, because I'm really getting into Stragaria witchcraft. I love it so much. It just speaks to me. I am not from Italy. I went to Venice when I was 14, but I'm learning about the location of it, and then all the different history around Italy, and all the, and it's like I'm learning a lot about Italy while I'm learning also about Italian witchcraft. And so it's been really awesome, because it all goes hand in hand together. And
well, it makes me think of the Italian grandma ladle magic.
Yes.
We've all seen those cartoons and everything of the old Italian grandma.
Yep.
Cursing and spitting in the stuff and raising the ladle.
The
and
ladle.
Yep.
And then, but even just making her sauce.
Yep.
Making her sauce, she puts magic into the love and the magic.
And the herbs. And
so that's also a good thing to know about making food and people who are lean more towards that. Like my husband loves to cook. And so he is now starting to incorporate what you put into the food and how that comes out.
The physical and metaphysical.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. So I want to ask you, what led you to your being a witch? What was the calling for you? How did this all start for you?
You know, that's the other question I get most often.
Oh, well, there we go. It's a good question because we want to know how did it work for you? How did you start out?
Well, I didn't become a witch until I was in my early 20s. I'm 37 now.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always had an interest in odd things, in fairy tales. You know, when I was a kid, I always went straight for the spooky books. Yep. Or the stories with witches in them.
Yep.
When it was reading time. And that was always the stuff that really held my interest. But I was raised in a very firmly Christian, very loving Christian household. Mm-hmm. And I was on that track for a very, very long time, like up until my early 20s. Mm-hmm. In my late teens, I kind of started questioning. Because
a teenager questions things?
Yeah. The teenage years is when we start going, hey, wait a minute.
Hey, this is some bullshit.
Yeah, it was getting to the point, you know, when I was just getting to the end of high school, I had already kind of been going, for a couple of years. But it was like, you know, I don't know if I believe this because I believe it or because other people around me are telling me to believe it and I'm not hearing anything else.
Yep.
Because looking back now, I've realized kind of that the times when I sort of, you know, felt the spirit and everything was mostly when I was singing. And I do still connect to the divine through music. It's a fun thing because I enjoy it.
I love that. That's wonderful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I only really seemed to have these sort of like mountaintop experiences when I was in a group of people who were also having that experience. Mm-hmm. Right around that time, I discovered I was an empath.
Yeah. It's fun.
And yeah, so it's like I need to start separating my feelings from the feelings of the people around me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was right when just sort of the real pride push was starting to come through, early 2000s.
Yeah.
And I was starting to go, some of the things I'm hearing in church are not fitting with what I feel is right in my heart.
Yeah.
And it was like, all right, I'm not finding the answers that I need here about this world, about the next world, about the spiritual world. And I need to find those answers somewhere. So I started looking around and I got into herbal medicine just sort of as a way to like have something to do to occupy myself.
Yeah.
And around that time, when I was about 22, somebody handed me a copy of Cunningham's. And
the solitary practitioner, the Wicca.
The Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs.
Oh, that one. Okay, yes.
And they're like, here, this is something you might enjoy. And I was like, wait, there's something to this? All this herbal medicine stuff I've been doing, I can do other stuff with that?
Yeah.
And I haven't looked back.
That's cool. Yeah.
I still have it.
Well, you know, mine was Uncle Bucky's Big Blue Book, Raymond Buckland's The Big Blue Book. And we all have similar stories, though. That's what I do like to hear about, because it's a lot of us witches came from some sort of religious background,
mm-hmm.
and then started questioning what we were being taught, and then started to branch out and look, and then there was always that one book that I love it. Yeah, we They hello, kitty. Be part of the show.
Hi.
We used to. What's your
This is
cat?
Havoc.
Havoc. I read about. And what's your
Havoc.
other? You have another cat?
Penny.
Penny.
Yeah. She's around here somewhere. This is my little boy. This is my helper.
Oh, look at him. Oh my God, he's so pretty.
He's a good boy. Come here.
We used to have a cat that every time we did Witches and Wine, Cupid, our black cat, she passed away.
And it would do magic.
Or when we did any magic, she would come out. But every time we would do an episode of Witches and Wine, she'd hide. But then as soon as we were doing anything witchy, she'd come out and be like, "What's going on?" But yeah, there's always that one book. And I used to sneak into the New Age store in the back where it had a tiny little section of witchcraft, the witchcraft section. And I was 18, and I used to sneak and sit in the back of that store and read Buckland's Big Blue Book, because I didn't want anyone to see that I was looking at witchcraft stuff. But I've been
in my school library.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Shared experience.
Yeah, so it's interesting that we've come along in different paths, but we still have that kind of same origin story. And when you found out that witchcraft and being a witch was what you are and who you are, did you feel like you found home, that you came home?
I did. Everything just felt like it fell into place. And it was like, this is what I've been working toward my whole life.
You found what was missing without realizing it was missing.
Yeah.
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 I cried.
Yeah.
I cried a lot.
Yeah, it is. It's an emotional thing, and for people who don't understand, I find it very interesting that they think we're doing something very ominous. I mean, I still have family members that think I'm dabbling with, devil worship and, all that stuff.
Since Bible verses.
Yeah, I get Bible verses thrown at me, and but it's so funny because I'm like, God, if you just hung out with me and my friends and the people I talk to, we are so opposite of that.
We actually bring them around.
Yeah.
Please don't tell them who they are.
Yeah.
For their sake, because none of us are ashamed. We're all proud of who we are, but
I love the cat.
It's for the comfort of others that we don't necessarily broadcast.
So do you get a lot of people asking for love spells? Because that's what I get.
Every so often, yes. Oof, Havoc, recognized her. Good boy. That's Mummy's helper. Good boy. A lot of what I get is people asking for advice on like how to do protection spells, or no, you can't eat that, or how to do a spell to attract something.
Yeah.
Like money or a new job. Those were the other ones that I've put out in the past.
Yeah. And what is
the occasional, how do I hex the pants off this person who, hurt my friend?
Yeah. Do you have a disclaimer though, like that you like? What do you tell people, like if someone said, I want to hex someone because they hurt me? Okay. How would you, like if I came to you and I said, Bree, this person really,
they did me wrong.
They did me wrong. And now do you need to know more information? Because do you need to know, like, you want to make sure that I'm just not being petty, right? So do you ask a lot of questions, or?
I ask a few questions. If they don't immediately tell me what the situation is, and most of them, the vast majority of them do, they come in and go, oh, this person, has been stealing from my family, or, this person was abusing a friend of mine, that sort of thing. If the situation isn't described, I do ask about it, partly just to make sure that they're making a sound decision, and this isn't something that's just like, ugh, this guy.
Yeah, exactly.
He didn't call me.
Yeah.
Because it should never be your first resort. Your first resort should always be to try and solve it in a practical, mundane fashion. And if you can't, or if it's something really bad, Oh yeah, then the pickle jars come out.
Yeah.
Oh, that is something I do say when I'm frustrated. Where the hell is my pickle jar?
Do you do a lot of mason jar magic?
Sometimes.
Yeah,
I save like little pickle jars, jam jars,
yeah,
clean them in the dishwasher, reuse them.
yeah.
Most
So
of my items are in spaghetti sauce jars.
oh, there you go. Yeah. So it's good. It's good to make sure people know that because I got a bachelor's degree in Wiccan clergy. I went to the Wiccan seminary. And so I deal with a lot of people who come to me for all sorts of advice. And in my training and what I do is I try to find out first, is it something that they are perceiving that may not be happening before you go into using any kind of magic. So a lot of it is just, what was that? A lot of it is just talking, just a lot of conversation, back and forth, trying to figure out, because I want to make sure that they have looked into, and I don't know. See, well, I'm Wiccan, and Wicca is very. I mean, I don't know if you're Wiccan or you just do you have a tradition? You're just a witch. You're witch. You're witch.
Basically, just a witch. I call myself a secular witch because my my religious practices and my craft are actually separate.
Okay. Oh, okay. That makes sense. Yeah. So it's very different in Wicca because it is a religious practice. Right. So, but I still think that it's important to kind of weed out the ones that might be not really needing to hex someone, but maybe they're just vengeful, or they just have, and there's a lot of times where there's mental illness involved, and that's where I step back because I'm not a therapist, I'm not a doctor. And so I know I'm very careful about making sure that this is a valid complaint, and so that's why I ask, because I know that is important. Whether you follow whatever tradition, it's still important to make sure that you're weeding out those people that are just, he didn't, like you said, he didn't call me, I'm mad at him, I want to put a hex on him. Yeah. So I'm assuming that you have, you kind of weed that out. And
to a point, yeah. Generally, if someone asks me for a spell and I can see a mundane, practical way to go about it that would be more effective than using a spell, I'm like, well, here's what you really need to do. And here's how you can back it up with some magic, but you really need to do this first.
Yes.
So, and if someone's talking to me about, how can I hex this person, I would also ask about the situation so we can tailor it.
Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Make the punishment fit the crime.
Yes.
Yes. So and then I go through the whole, make sure that you are prepared to accept whatever consequences this brings. Make sure you cleanse and protect yourself before and after you do this. Yeah. And, just be prepared, because you can't sling mud without getting your hands dirty. So make sure you want to do this.
So you brought up real quick, we're coming up to our hour, but you brought up something that, and I'm just interested in different people's, I have my opinion on it, and I think we can share our opinions. What do you feel about cultural appropriation in witchcraft? How does that, what are your views on that? And what is cultural appropriation in witchcraft for those who may not understand what that is?
Cultural appropriation is when someone who does not belong to a closed culture, that is something you either have to be born into or initiated into in order to be part of that community. When someone who is outside of that cherry picks some part of it and uses it out of context to enhance their own workings without properly acknowledging where it came from, and just kind of going, ooh, isn't this lovely? It's flavor text. It's a cute little bauble.
Yes.
So it's not understanding hoodoo, but wanting to ride the loa.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So and giving credit where credit is due.
Exactly.
And doing the research and honoring that. Because if you think about it, we all kind of culturally appropriate, especially in America, because we're such a Heinz 57 of a hodgepodge of so it's sometimes it's kind of hard not to, but you have to acknowledge that.
It's hard to know where the line is, because so much of modern paganism and so much of modern witchcraft practices, came from that blending, back in the early and mid 20th century, both with the Gardnerian movement and the reconstruction of traditional witchcraft practices, and then of course the whole hippie generation and the New Age movement. And everything just kind of got blended together because it was a free-for-all, and folks were like, there's all kinds of neat spiritual practices out there. Let's use that to enhance what we're talking about and make it feel interconnected.
Yeah.
It was all interpretive without any actual text.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And in a lot of cases, it was also, hey, maybe we didn't ask the people whose culture this comes from if they're okay with it being an open practice, which is why now we're having to walk things back. The big one right now is smudging. It's not that we can't use burning herbs, it's that the term smudging refers to a specific sacred ritual, and we've been asked by the people whose tradition it is not to use it.
Yeah. Well, it's a whole different, I think, because we didn't realize, and I didn't realize either, because I'm guilty of that. It's like smudging. I just thought, smudging, but I didn't realize until the last few years that is actually a ceremony that is held by that culture that is not what we think it is. And so, so we're just using the wrong term to and so I say saging, because I use sage. And so, and that, that's one thing to be just like, oh, I didn't know that. Because no one's going to know it all.
But, you can't know unless someone tells you. And we've been told one set of things from, one set of perspectives for so long that now when the community is opening up and getting these other perspectives, which is why they're so important, it's like, oh, shoot, okay, maybe we have to reconsider some things, but that's okay. Because there are like open source, open culture terms for all of these things that we're now having to give up. That's what some folks are worried about. Oh, now I can't use this, I can't use that. No, you can still use it. You just don't call it smudging, call it saging or smoke cleansing. Don't call it a voodoo doll, call it a poppet. Call it what it is.
Yeah. And that, to me, that's acceptable. That's acceptable. And I'm glad we're talking about this, because I know that there are people that I have even interacted with that are like, I know, I love your cat. He's huge. He's huge. We love big cats.
Like a big boy.
Big cats, and I cannot lie. But so we could do a whole show on this, but I just wanted to touch upon what that is, because I had a feeling that we were on the same wavelength with that. It's not about you can't do this and you can't do that. It's like, just call it something different. And if you are working with, be respectful, and know that if someone comes to you and says, look, I'm from this tradition or I'm from this culture, and you're not doing it right, or you're not calling it right, then this is a learning opportunity.
Yes.
Not a hindering opportunity. It's not a scolding. It's not hindering us. Again, all the books, all the research, all the knowledge, right? Yes.
And all the listening.
Because
that's important too. We have to ask the question sometimes, is this a thing that's okay for me to be doing? And occasionally we have to accept when the answer is no.
Yeah.
Just remember, the goddess gave us 2 ears but 1 mouth.
Yeah.
Exactly. Love it.
So, we're gonna wrap this up. You are so amazing, and so I love talking to you.
It was very nice meeting you.
And this, for our viewers, this is our first time really, like Bree and I were emailing each other, but this is our first quote unquote face to face meeting each other. So this is like the truest form of interviewing because we've never met, but I love it. It's we're really finding out a lot about each other, and you're just a joy. You're so amazing. And I'm going to go check out all your books, and I'm going to follow you, and I'm going to fangirl you, so be prepared.
I welcome it. I love it.
So,
I'm still early days enough that I'm incredibly flattered by anybody who thinks I'm cool.
Oh, so. Well, you're awesome, and I love it. I just love your vibes. So thank you so much. We're gonna before we leave, there was something I was gonna say and I completely forgot. It's that whole can't find that file cabinet in my brain. Oh well. So we're gonna go ahead and if anybody wants to get a hold of us, if you want to be a guest on our show, if you just want to ask us questions on why we do what we do, then you can email us at
crossroadscoven@gmail.com.
What was that email again?
That was crossroadscoven@gmail.com.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And please remember, always be kind to one another and walk with the goddess. And until next time, blessed be. Have a great night, everyone. Drink up.